everyone. I'm super excited to uh, be speaking to y'all. I've only started to speak at events or like even presentations only for the last little bit, and I'll get into more of that. Um, and yeah, I've been in the industry for quite a while. I graduated from university in 2015. So I've been doing this now like 10 years. I think it's been 10 years since I graduated from university, from design school. But my career through university was not as like smooth as I wanted it to be, which I'll quickly touch on. So I'm gonna start my presentation just because a lot of that's kind of in there. So if that's cool with you all. Also, I don't use Keynote that often. I wish I did, but I'm gonna try this anyways, to share my screen. Let's see how this works. Just bear with me here. Does anyone have tips on like sharing Keynote presentations? Is that even like a thing while you're talking?
I just assumed you had it on, and then when you press share, you click the
present.
screen you want to present.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. You're right. I got it. I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Oh, there
How's
you
that
go.
look? Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Okay. So I just gonna talk a little bit about my journey and just kind of what I've done so far. And I find this the easiest way to talk about it because this is my entire journey. And so I call it design school dropout and just proof that failing can be a career path. But um, but also I did reapply and eventually graduated. So my name is Chris Reyes, and I run a little creative studio called Every Other Studio, based out of Edmonton, Alberta. I've been doing this. Technically, the company's only been alive for about 5 years, but I've been running it full time for 3 years. So still like pretty in its early stages, what it feels like, and so I've been learning lots since then. And even from the name Every Other, it has no real meaning. I just liked how it sounded, especially when you have like obscure band names. That's always something I loved. It's just music and how much meaning you can put into a name. So right from the get-go, I just wanted something that sounded kind of generic but weird at the same time. So as cliche as it all sounds, failing can be your best teacher. This was something I learned lots, and I'm still learning this. You'll go through it in your entire career, but honestly, the best thing from it is just to learn from it and uh, kind of get back up. So I'll kind of go through some of the quick scenarios and like things that happened to me. So my first failure was actually my high school art class when I needed my portfolio to get into university. And it's not because I was bad at art or anything like that. I had really bad habits and I just never finished my projects in time. So I just failed it. So that was a huge bummer for me. Hated it. Uh, so then I eventually got it, graduated, and all that good stuff. Finally made it through. I finally had a portfolio good enough to get into university. And so McEwen, I have this picture because I did this presentation in Edmonton. So this building here in Edmonton is very recognizable. It's a bright orange building, but it's no longer that anymore. It's actually just called the Orange Building. So this was the university school that I went to, where I eventually, got in. Okay, so here's my path, and then I get into the programs, and my second failure was I failed Design History 1. And so in university at the time, now it's a full-on bachelor program, uh, you needed to pass design history to get further into the program and kind of continue on. So I actually ended up failing design history 1. At this point is when I actually took a 2-year break from design school, got a different job. This was when I was exploring different career opportunities and just looking up at different things. And I worked at a dealership for a little while, and I was working on cars, changing oil. I did that because a friend of mine got me the job. And what I learned is that I still loved working with my hands and just kind of problem solve for the most part. And so I was very close. I thought, you know what, I will do this. I'm gonna become a mechanic. Why not? This is for me. I think I can do this. But I didn't like the environment. At the end of the couple years while I was doing this, I realized this is not what I want to do every day for work. So got my stuff together. I reapplied, and I had to resubmit kind of an application because I was put on what was called academic probation, and basically prove that I was better, that I was still smart enough to kind of do this thing. And so I did. And so I finally re-entered 2 years later into my program. So I was only 1 year into the school. And so took a 2-year break. So what should have been a 3-year program ended up being 5 years. Just trying to get my design diploma, not even my bachelor, or not even my degree, because that didn't exist yet at the university I went to. So anyways, did school. I was happy, finally graduated, and I was, ready to take on design jobs. So I actually found my first job through Kijiji. if Which I would imagine that's not the place you would go. Something like I wish I had known about even RGD when I was in school, especially in Edmonton. It was, I think I vague kind of heard of what it was because there was another one, GDC. I can't remember what that one's called. But yeah, trying to find resources. I was really someone that was trying to figure a lot of stuff on my own. And so I actually found, a random design job through Kijiji, and this was my first business card. I was working for a sign shop, which was actually really cool. I actually ended up learning a lot working at a sign shop, and it wasn't even just print signage or kind of banners like that or anything like that, but it was we would fabricate a lot of signs. We had a workshop we cut aluminum, we had acrylic, we had electricians that would install and put lighting. So which I thought was pretty good for a kind of shot in the dark finding this job. This is actually one of the first things that actually started to really kind of spark my interest in typography, because I ended up doing a lot of conceptual signage and working with other companies' logos, or even companies that never had any logos would come to us, and we'd have to fabricate signage that would be installed. So I did a lot of that. This was one of my last projects that I did. So this is actually a little city or town in Alberta. And the reason why I highlight this one is because I did this so long ago, and this was one of the first projects I was able to conceptualize from the ground up. So by this time I got to learn dimensions, I learned about depths, I learned about different lighting, different cutting techniques, installation, which I thought was actually quite valuable nearing the end of working here. And I thought it was super useful. And so I did these kind of quick renders because at this point, my job wasn't to make any production files. It was purely concept. Uh, and then go back and forth with the client, the account manager, and my art director at the time would constantly give me little tidbits of advice of like how to improve showing these and learning the software. So it actually got constructed, which was really cool. It's always fun to see these kinds of things in real life. So this was one of those little moments of thrill when you kind of see your work out in real life. When you thought of it on the computer, you made it, pitched it. Oh, I didn't pitch it. I was still a kind of a junior at the time. But I worked with an art director who really kind of started to show me some of these ropes and like all these different uh, techniques, and it was really cool to see. So then over the years while I was there, this is the kind of stuff we got to do. So we did some wayfinding signage. We got to do with play with a lot of even interior stuff. I learned so much more than I thought I would. Um, so yeah, I did this. Even playing with like faux neon was fun. Making those scissors was a fun project. But one of the big turning points here was I would receive a lot of brand guides from companies, and so many times I wanted to, when we would get projects when companies had no logos, had no color or anything, and there was kind of no thought or care other than they just needed a signage. That's kind of that point too, where I knew I wanted to do more than this. I wanted to be I wanted to be the one that was building brands, the one that was making those guides, so then I can pass those off to other companies to kind of keep executing on a vision. So this is where, okay, I'm at a sign shop. It was a good experience, but I was ready to move on. I wanted to get into an agency world and get into the agency experience and kind of learn from other people, other disciplines, and other positions like that. So at this time, I got my resume, got my updated my portfolio. I sent out about 10 applications. I only got 2 interviews. Not bad. 2 interviews. I got 0 job offers. And that was kind of like, okay, this is kind of a bummer. So again, those are one of those lessons you learn. Like you're gonna keep learning it. I see it all the time. Uh, trying to break into the industry is not that it's not easy, but I think the reason why RGD exists is like to kind of bridge a lot of those gaps. So um, I I love this quote. This one, the Coco Chanel one. I love the idea of just don't spend time beating on a wall hoping to turn it into a door. So I kind of at the time I had to revamp my portfolio. What I thought was good when I even graduated from university, what I had in my portfolio show. I had to get a good look at it. I got some peer review, and even one of my closest friends at the time, she was telling me like she had no problem telling me what was not good and like what to get out, like take out of my portfolio. It's like things you need to hear. And so during this time, this was when I was just revamping my entire portfolio, and not say redoing it, but I really did take even some of my school projects, took a look at them, uh, kind of fixed what I wanted to do, even if when I didn't have the time when I was in school. I really kind of took those opportunities to just kind of refine. Again, I didn't. This is when I wish I had someone, but I didn't yet. Anyways, I finally got my first job at my first agency, and so this was one of those relieved feelings because this is where I got to work with a really, really good creative director. And it's one of those moments where I learned working with really, really like talented people or experienced people is just going to help you immensely. So I worked with a creative director here at my first agency for about just maybe under 2 years, I think. But even within those 2 years, I learned so much from him. It was amazing. So I wanted to highlight one of the projects that I did there. And this was for the University of Alberta. And the reason why I bring this one up is because this was kind of that turning point where I think at this time, once he moved on, I was a senior designer for a little bit, and this was my first project as 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 a creative director when I finally kind of worked my way up there. Because this was one of those moments there where the client had a problem. They wanted a brochure for engineering students. So the brief here was every year they know that they're going to get math and science students no matter what. That's what the engineering field has been and always has been. But what they wanted was to attract a little bit more creative problem solvers and just to let students know that a career in engineering doesn't have to be hard. There's different pathways you can go to become an engineer. So they really wanted students that can uh, problem solve and but creatively. Like they wanted the not typical students that they would get, and even attract more female students. That was something too. In this industry, it's pretty male dominated, but that was something they wanted to kind of break into for when they did recruitment in high schools. So we came up with this brochure idea. This was an idea I had, and I thought this was one of the times where we pitched it, and I didn't know for sure what it was gonna be. I mean, I was still learning. Even sometimes I would get the ambitious thought of what if we turned the whole brochure into like a little city, what if we made kind of pop-ups or something like that. It's not feasible. From then you learn production, you learn how budgets, you start to learn how much things cost when it comes to print. Uh, Anyways, that's okay. We took a step back and we still came up with an idea that we thought would be really cool. What if we did an airplane that where you can pop out pieces, different parts in the airplane can represent different parts of the engineering program, like civil, mechanical, you name it. So this was really cool. The client loved it, signed off on it, and so we ended up making this. And this was just one of those really cool moments that was super, super memorable because the client came back and they said that they ordered a certain amount of copies and they ran out of them really fast and they had to reprint a whole bunch of new ones. So that was that. It was one of the moments where a really moment of growth of being like, okay, this is what this work can be. It's not so much of here's a project, can you do it? Yes, but there's conversations worth having where like you're trying to elevate or you're trying to uh, solve the problem they're trying to solve the problem that they have. Time goes on. I've been there for a few years now, and then as everyone knows, uh, I I've been freelancing for a while, so I've been taking on jobs while I was working at an agency. So a lot of this stuff was kind of happening simultaneously. So then every other was born, and we thought, okay, we're gonna try this, but we did it slowly. I registered the name. I went to the office, got the name, and then 2020 happens. And so technically, this is when my company was born in the year 2020. Um, every other was born. So this was a bit rough, but um, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And so even though this is when we launched the company, uh, technically my partner was running it for about 2 years before I joined. So this was still in the side. And so this is the pandemic happens. Everyone is, a mess. Uh, Anyways, I got laid off for a little bit for a couple months, I believe. And so this is kind of when I took the time to uh, kind of refine some skills that I was really working on. So earlier, earlier when I mentioned that I like typography was just something I was really, really keen on learning. And so during the pandemic, uh, this I did this challenge for fun on Instagram. If you guys know about it, you might have seen the account. They don't do it anymore, but they used to run this challenge every year. Didn't think much of it. I just kind of had fun doing it, kind of exploring letters, and yeah, it's kind of. I was laid off. I wasn't doing much, and so I really did take this opportunity to kind of work on things, even even some evenings and weekends, just for the fun of it. But the cool part about this is actually what started to lead to a little bit more work because of this challenge. And so one of the local publications that runs in our in Edmonton saw this. She was a creative director for Edify, and this is a magazine here in Edmonton. This one's probably one of the more broadly famous ones here in our city, just not everywhere, not across Canada or anything like that. But so then she reached out to me and asked if I would do some editorial work, and so I thought absolutely. So this is simultaneously, again, I'm doing a little bit of freelance. I got my job back, but then I started to dive into this kind of world for a little bit because I thought this was super fun, which led to more editorial work. I started to explore a little bit more illustration and typography, and so even to this day, this is still something I still do for fun, kind of on the side, even though I do kind of blend it into my current work. And then even from this, it led to artist work and musicians, and got to do some pretty cool motion graphics and poster for a band for their tour, which was across Canada, I think. Yeah, Ontario, went to, yeah, all the way to BC. So this was really, it was a really cool moment to see some of this stuff take shape, and which led to this. I got to be a feature artist for CBC Arts for a little bit. All this happening simultaneously. Again, it was one of those moments that kind of took off, and my love for typography really kind of blew up for a little bit here, and so I was taking on more of these things. And again, the reason why I show this is because this is the kind of thing that shows just a lot of really good experience, really good, just memorable experiences, and just being able to show kind of range and things like that. So then finally, I commit to every other. This is where I do my big leap of faith, and I'm like, this was the biggest. This one was the one where if I'm gonna fail, this is gonna be the time where I fail pretty hard, because running a creative studio, doing freelance work is teaches you a lot. You know, whether it's managing business, managing your own design work, and just giving you freedom at the same time. So this is where finally I'm like, okay, I'm gonna commit to every other. So by this time, I started to gain a little bit more experience as I went along. Got to make really meaningful connections just through some things word of mouth, and even some of the clients that I've worked with since I graduated university. Some of my freelance clients, they actually ended up turning into some of my ongoing clients even to this day. So these are some of the quick case studies that I have, and I'll kind of zip through them. And the reason for them is because branding was one of the things I wanted to work in the most, and to do really good branding. It takes a lot, especially to kind of cut through some of the noise and clutter, and like the things that will make you stand out a bit more. It's always I find it's the things that move clients. It's in how you present it, how you solve what they're trying to solve, and just find moments where you can add something memorable to it. So this one was a thrift store, and before they hired us, it started as a woman who was selling clothes for a not-for-profit during the pandemic, and all her proceeds were going to this not-for-profit. So she called it More Than a Fad. And before we did any branding, like all she had was Canva templates and Canva illustrations. Like this was in 2020, so this was 5 years ago. So we took this on. They hired us because she started to gain more traction. She ended up getting enough funding, and kind of got sort of bought out by another company to actually have a brick and mortar store, like an actual physical store. So when we came on and we started brainstorming and doing the sessions for branding, we took a quick like competitor analysis to like our surrounding area. So even, the big stores here, Goodwill or Valley Village. So even that kind of brand recognition, like that strong blue and like that red, were kind of those two big ones. And so we thought, okay, more than a fad, what if we like really leaned into the vintage style thing? And so back in 2020, we had pitched just kind of the mid-century modern sort of style. That was I've seen this now a lot more. At the time, I thought I haven't seen this yet. So for a thrift store, this was really just really really fitting. Uh, we elevated everything down to posters that we printed inside their store, and they loved it. They loved this idea. They loved how this was coming to life. Like not only their messaging, but how the colors work together, the identity system. And so it was really cool to see, because then they even ended up getting a truck. We got to design the decal that goes on it, and social, everything. And we've been pretty fortunate. This one got to be in applied arts, which is pretty cool to see. That was, at this point, we had never won anything like it. This was one of those things we kind of took a shot in the dark and see what happens. So that was really cool to see. We did a mural for another not-for-profit client. There was those moments where we had a client, we did work for them. They didn't know, they just got keys to a building, and they knew they wanted something on their wall. And it was like, okay, so this is another chance for, like, this is how people will experience the space. So he gave us the green light to paint the walls, and we got to do a pretty cool quick not quick, I shouldn't say quick. We got to do a mural, and this was technically probably the second mural I did in my life, and this was probably the hardest one. I learned a lot from this. So tape. If you ever do murals, invest in good tape, and try not to do a lot of straight lines, because that's what was killing us. But it turned out pretty well. I was like, we were happy with how it turned out. The client was even happier. And so, yeah, again, it was a cool moment. This got some recognition too, kind of even locally, award show, and then applied arts. So that's fun. So it was at this point where I actually got involved with RGD. This was someone encouraged me to submit for the Ultra Bold Awards, I believe. Again, it was one of, take a chance, just see what happens. That was a really cool experience, going through that whole process, and I got to meet some really cool people. And probably, as Taylor probably knows, she was probably emailed me at the beginning, being like, "Hey, are you interested in being a member?" Maybe it was Heidi. I don't know. I don't remember now. But it was really good incentive. And so I thought, you know what? I remember exploring the website and kind of reading through everything. And I thought, yeah, I think this might actually help my my career, my studio, my the things I'm trying to do. And so once I did join it, it opened up a whole other world of seeing other kind of designers, seeing like what's kind of happening across Canada, really. And it was a really cool moment. You even got to join or got to see Design Thinkers for the first time. I never went until that year, I believe, and so I've been going there since. Which is really, yeah, it's just such an awesome event. So if you get the chance, you should do it. Gonna zip through this one. Another moment, we got to brand a university type of program that had to do with AI. I know AI has their qualms, has their things, but the whole idea was these four colleges, or five colleges, no, four secondary institutions, one research institute. They came together to create this program, teach AI. We got to brand it, and so this was a really cool thing to see just kind of come to life. And just they wanted something with really like vivid colors that would stand out. Oops, I'll go to the next one. This one, I wanted to highlight this one because this is a logo we made for, you don't know what it is. They're a video production company. And one of the things they wanted to do is they didn't want to say, "Hey, we're a video company." They just wanted a name, and that kind of stuck and had a reason for it. And so when we made the brand for this, we thought, okay, They named themselves. They came to us with the name, and we wanted to give them something that um, something that would elevate it and give it more of a reason. And so we came up with this whole system to what if your word mark literally did what it said? It just kind of made a nudge motion. Uh, they loved it. They loved the entire system. So once we built it out, they saw all the potential. They saw. So then once they actually released some of their work, they started to use some of these assets, and we thought about the context. You know, when you see the end of a video where like show something, there's always like production name, you know, and a logo or something. So that was kind of the idea there. Yeah, they built it out for socials, different formats, all the way to merch, and then even print, and then other little assets that kind of show the identity in context. And we thought, well, if you're a video company, we should probably show motion or do something that shows that can showcase your work. So they loved it, and so yeah, we built it up, and it, it was great. It was a really cool experience. Okay, this is the last one I'm going to talk about. So this one is a not-for-profit client we've been working with for years, and when I talk about memorable experiences, this is one of them because this is a fundraiser, and I wanted to highlight this one because they reached like on top of you doing your design work and delivering what you did and like how you solved it for the client. It was even a better feeling when they have a goal and they just reach it like far beyond it. The only thing I can't say, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of design work. No, I think it's like it's a little bit of everything, every piece moving together. So we really wanted to go for the heartstrings for this one. It was called Underdog, and we actually ended up using real spray painted pieces as assets. We scanned them in after, and then used it to create different posters. We used it to make the what's called the event guide, and kind of try to bring some of that stuff to life, because in the fundraiser they talk about a lot of underdog stories and some of the youth that they work with, and so we really wanted something that kind of gave this bigger emotional feel, and so we got to bring it to life using just kind of a simple build like this. We thought, what if we gave stats and quotes from students and youth, and so your donors can see like what their money is actually going towards. So this was a cool experience too, and we got to see donors engage with these kinds of things and read it and actually kind of care, and it uh, yeah, it really made it such a world of a difference. Bringing it to digital too. So we had these QR codes on tables in the cutout of foam fingers that landed to this page. So on top of donations, we thought, well, they also like volunteers. So it delighted so many donors. I think we had these things on the table that kind of they were scanning because they wanted to see where it led to. Every touch point was thought of, right down to yeah, social, print, and how people interacted with it. Yeah, so that was this one was a really special one just for that reason. It was just really cool to see, and yeah, since then we've been got to go to different things. This was us attending an awards night locally. So all that to say, embrace failure. You don't know where it's going to go, because failure teaches you resilience, creativity, and how to laugh at yourself when things go wrong. So if you fail, congrats, you're officially on the creative career track. Yeah, so thank you, RGD Student Committee.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. Very exciting. Yeah. That was like a really great presentation, and I don't know, just going through your whole journey and very down to earth. So that was really great. Let's open the floor up for any questions. You guys know how it goes, just as usual. Hands up. Yep. Kendra?
Hi, I just wrote this down because I didn't want to forget it. But for the individuals who are getting out of school or who are like in school but are hoping to dive into the industry, do you think that there's a difference between failure in school versus failure in the industry? And how would you describe that for a student who's looking to maybe experiment in a different area like typography, print, editorial without like affecting their like self-esteem within the industry?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. That's I don't think there's a difference. The only difference I would say for school is like when you're doing grades and things like that. Like I literally failed. I got an F and I couldn't finish my program. So that was uh that was tough. But then you just kind of, I don't know, you decide to grow from it. It's not. I knew I didn't want to sink into that until 2 years later is when I really realized that. I was like, no, this is an industry I want to be in and I want to get good at it. So then when I did reapply, I did. But I think the entire career is gonna have that like kind of the ups and downs, because even when I mentioned when I applied, there's that feeling when you're like, yes, I got this, and then when you feel like you kind of fail at those things, or like you're not getting accepted, you're not getting interviews, not getting whatever. Um, I think they're just moments that really shape your character. Like you really take a look, ask for feedback. I think I've had students now being here. I got to do a mentorship through RGD, and even one of the students afterwards, I think, messaged me a year later asking for like just like a quick portfolio review to see, like, give her like the criticism that she needed, and so I did, and I think she really took it and kind of like really improved her portfolio. So I don't think there's a difference. The only difference is like grades versus like your actual work, and then to not try not to, you have to get a little bit of thick skin, because it's like that weird mix of art, but design and business. So there's like some objectivity to it. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, Ashley.
Firstly, I want to say great presentation and great work. I really value presentations like the ones that we have, because I find it's just like everyone so far has been so real and realistic about their experiences in the industry, and a lot of it hits so close to home. My question is with, after everything of, um, dropping out of school, going back, and then, the pandemic, how did you keep that momentum, that drive going? Because I find that's something I've definitely been struggling with. And
Mhm.
I told myself this year that I don't want to self sabotage. I don't want to get in the way of opportunities that come my way. For example, I got the chance to do venue flyers for Capitol Music Week here in Ottawa.
Cool.
And I was so scared. I was so scared. When my neighbor came to me about it, I was like, I wanted to be like, no, I can't do this. Like, like totally in my head about it, imposter syndrome, all of the above. I was like, oh my God, no, they're gonna hate everything. But it was really cool to, see their branding guide. I had to do it all on Canva, which I was not used to.
Yeah.
So then on top of that, I had to learn Canva, and then, emailing them, sending them my work for feedback or any revisions that needed to make was so daunting. I felt sick like the whole week, like so scared. So
Mhm.
how do you just keep, picking yourself up, keep going, and because this is definitely an industry I want to be in, but I definitely have days where I'm like spiraling and I'm like, can I do this? Am I going to be good at this?
Yeah, that's a good question. For everything that you've seen here in my presentation, this is still like maybe 1% of like the crap that I did before this. And it's funny you bring up posters, because I remember doing that when I was taking on freelance while I was working at my first design job. Like even things like that. Uh, I would jump in almost full. I jump in full force because there were things I knew I loved, like it's like example, music is a good example because that world is like, if you think gig posters, things like that, I find that there's usually room there to make mistakes and like try things. Um, and so I would say honestly, you just try. You do it, even if it's like daunting or you don't know how you're gonna do it, what they're gonna say. Uh, I learned over the years to just, even when you're presenting or giving a rationale, say it with confidence. And then when the meeting's over, the call's talk, you can like throw up later because it's that feeling of you just don't know. But then you have to remember part of it is that objectivity to it, because it's like they're looking for a goal. They're like, no, like we want this. We're trying to communicate this with this poster. Um, I would say that's the first thing I would say to that, and then to stay inspired. Oh my goodness, sometimes it's such a mix. Sometimes if social media, if I'm on it too long, that's when I will spiral, and so I got to screen breaks. I think screen breaks is a big one, honestly. Uh, and then try to do something that's not design related. Like my outlet. If I'm not doing that, I will do something in music. I will read. I will do something to like try to unwind. It's the best way I can say it. But yeah, I'd take the time to look at, like, find those things for you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question as well, Chris.
Yeah.
When you first went full time with your studio, and didn't have like a reliable income, were there any spots where it was like a tricky situation, and how did that affect your work, and how did you bounce back from that?
Um, so I think before I launched, I made a plan first, and so what happened? So here's like the like full transparency. It's some of the clients I had when I first freelanced and I was graduating, so around 2014, 15. Uh, there's people that would kind of hire me because they knew I was a student, so they knew I was a bit like cheaper, right? Like less expensive. And so when I was working at agencies, like simultaneously, not only that I learned lots there and got like better at my skills, took the time, I would do some work on the side. But once I kind of got to that point where I I felt um just confident enough to like, okay, I know I can do this work. I know I can do a lot of this work on like a bigger scale. I had 3 clients lined up where I got contracts with them, committed to work with us for like the next year or two. And so once I got those contracts signed, then I took the jump because then I figured at least if I have a contract and I have some guaranteed stuff going on for the next year, I can build off that momentum.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Mhm.
What was your craziest? What's the craziest or no most difficult client you've ever had, and how did you deal with it?
Difficult. There's only luckily, I've only had, I'd say I only had really one bad one that I remember where gave they gave a deposit, like I gave money back because it was not going well. There was a time where I knew what we were doing, but the client was a little bit inexperienced on how to be a client. And that was also one of those moments where I learned, okay, not only are you learning your design skills in this industry, like trying to be creative, but running a business, that I'd say the most challenging part is like learning to run a creative business. And then managing relationships and just how to talk to people. So one of them being, I had only, I would say I had one difficult client where the communication was just not sticking, or they were just not understanding what I was trying to say and do. And honestly, I just had to cut ties and like truthfully confront and be like, this isn't gonna work. And I gave back a deposit because I don't want to work with someone like that. That's what I would say at the beginning. But most of the times, it's just I find when I've had difficult clients, like even in my agency experience when I was creative director, it was I was booked a call. I found communicating and talking was like the best way, because if things get lost in email, you don't know what's kind of going on with them, and that I found that there's usually a root problem, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and so it's usually I end up talking to them. I just talk. That's what I do. That's what I yeah. That's how.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
I think there was a question in the chat. Yes, Rahaf says that was very inspiring. What was your best experience freelancing, working with a company, or owning a business?
Okay. That's honestly, it's best experience. I would say when my work gets approved and seeing like the actual results. Honestly, these like my not-for-profit ones, especially the ones that do like fundraiser, they have like very specific goals. So even this last one, they wanted, I think they're trying to raise $250,000, something like that, and they surpassed it. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that when my work gets to the finish line. That's kind of usually honestly the best experience. It's usually even down to my artist clients. If they did a gig poster and they reply back, I love it. Like that's great. It's just honestly seeing projects to the finish line. Even yeah, I'd say that's my best experience. There's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff.
And then do you think that you prefer more freelancing or working within a company or owning your own business?
Right now I think owning my own business for sure.
Great.
Maybe not so much when you first started.
Yeah, it's scary because that was also a positioning thing where it's like I was a freelancer kind of slash company, and so I did at that time at the beginning I did actually work with some larger agencies, which was nice because they knew I was, even though I had a company name, I was the contractor, and so that helped. But since then, even though I did like working with some of the big agencies for as a contractor for a little bit, the only thing I realized is like, okay, but then I lose contact with the client and I'm not the one building any of that relationship. So then after that experience is actually when I started to take on more of the business mindset and being the owner and talking to decision makers.
Great. Okay, well, if that's all for today, if there's not any more questions, I think we can say thank you to Chris and thank you so much for that presentation. All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay,
Thank
yeah, thanks for
you.
having me.